Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our weekly Sunday Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for letting us come and read to you. For everybody online, you can take your Krishna books out. We're on chapter 39. And as always, before we begin, let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskacha Deshatarane. And to each other, Vancha Kalpadrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, chapter 39, Akrura's return journey and his vision of Vishnu Loka within the Jamuna River. Akrura was warmly received by Lord Krishna and Nanda Maharaj and offered a resting place for the night. In the meantime, the two brothers, Balaram and Krishna, went to take their supper. Akrura sat on his bed and began to reflect that all the desires he had contemplated while coming from Mathura to Vrindavan had been fulfilled. Lord Krishna is the husband of the goddess of fortune. Being pleased with his pure devotee, he can offer whatever the devotee desires. But the pure devotee does not ask anything from the Lord for his personal benefit.
After taking their supper, Krishna and Balaram came to bid good night to Akrura and asked him how Kamsa was dealing with their friends and relatives. Krishna then inquired into Kamsa's plan. The Supreme Personality of Godhead then informed Akrura that his presence was very welcome. He inquired from him whether all his relatives and friends were well and free from all kinds of ailments. Krishna stated that he was very sorry that his maternal uncle Kamsa was the head of the kingdom. He said that Kamsa was the greatest anomaly in the whole system of government and that they could not expect any welfare for the citizens while he ruled. Then Krishna said, "My father has undergone much tribulation simply from my being his son. For this reason also he has lost many other sons. I think myself so fortunate that you have come as my friend and relative. My dear uncle Akrura, please tell me the purpose of your coming to Vrindavan."
After this inquiry, Akrura, who belonged to the dynasty of Yadu, explained the recent events in Mathura, including Kamsa's attempt to kill Vasudeva, the father of Krishna. He related the things which had happened after the disclosure by Narada that Krishna was the son of Vasudeva, hidden by Vasudeva in the house of Nanda Maharaja. Akrura narrated all the stories regarding Kamsa. He told how Narada had met Kamsa and how he himself was deputed by Kamsa to come to Vrindavana. Akrura explained to Krishna that Narada had told Kamsa all about Krishna's being transferred from Mathura to Vrindavana just after his birth and about his killing all the demons sent by Kamsa. Akrura then explained to Krishna the purpose of his coming to Vrindavana to take him back to Mathura. After hearing of these arrangements, Balarama and Krishna, who are very expert in killing opponents, mildly laughed at the plans of Kamsa.
They immediately informed Nanda Maharaj that Kamsa had invited all the cowherd men and boys to go to Mathura to participate in the ceremony known as Dhanu Yajna. Kamsa wanted them all to go there to participate in the function. On Krishna's word, Nanda Maharaj at once called for the cowherd men and asked them to collect milk and all kinds of milk products to present to the king in the ceremony. He also sent instructions to the police chief of Vrindavan to tell all the inhabitants about Kamsa's great Dhanu Yajna function and to invite them to join. Nanda Maharaj informed the cowherd men that they would start the next morning. They therefore arranged for the cows and bulls to carry them all to Mathura.
When the Gopis heard that Akrura had come to take Krishna and Balram away to Mathura, they became overwhelmed with anxiety. Some of them became so aggrieved that their faces turned black, and they began to breathe warmly and had palpitations of the heart. They discovered that their hair and clothes immediately loosened. Hearing the news that Krishna and Balram were leaving for Mathura, others who were engaged in household duties stopped working, as if they had forgotten everything, like a person who is called forth to die and leave this world at once. Others immediately fainted due to separation from Krishna. Remembering his attractive smile and his talks with them, the Gopis became overwhelmed with grief. They all remembered the characteristics of the personality of Godhead, how he moved within the area of Vrindavan, and how, with joking words, he attracted all their hearts. Thinking of Krishna and of their imminent separation from him, the Gopis assembled together with heavily beating hearts. They were completely absorbed in thought of Krishna, and with tears falling from their eyes, they spoke as follows.
O Providence, you are so cruel. It appears that you do not know how to show mercy to others. By your arrangement, friends contact one another, but before they can fulfill their desires, you separate them. This is exactly like a child's game that has no meaning. It is very abominable that you arrange to show us beautiful Krishna, whose bluish curling hair beautifies his broad forehead and sharp nose, and who is always smiling to minimize all grief in this material world, and then arrange to separate him from us. O Providence, you are so cruel, but most astonishingly you appear now as Akrura, which means not cruel. In the beginning, we appreciated your workmanship in giving us these eyes to see the beautiful face of Krishna. But now, just like a foolish creature, you are taking away our eyes by not letting us see Krishna here anymore. Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, is also very cruel. He must always have new friends. He does not like to keep friendship for a long time with anyone. We Gopis of Vrindavan, having left our homes, friends and relatives, have become Krishna's maidservants, but he is neglecting us and going away. He does not even look upon us, although we are completely surrendered unto him. Now all the young girls in Mathura will have the opportunity. They are expecting Krishna's arrival, and they will enjoy his sweet smiling face and will drink its honey. Although we know that Krishna is very steady and determined, we are afraid that as soon as he sees the beautiful faces of the young girls in Mathura, he will forget himself. We fear he will become controlled by them and will forget us, for we are simple village girls. He will no longer be kind to us. We therefore do not expect Krishna to return to Vrindavan. He will not leave the company of the girls in Mathura.
The Gopis began to imagine the great function in the city of Mathura. Krishna would pass through the streets, and the ladies and the young girl of the city would see him from the balconies of their respective houses. Mathura city contained different communities, known them as Dasra, Bhoja, Andhika and Satvata. All these communities were different branches of the same family in which Krishna appeared, namely the Yadu dynasty. They were all expecting the arrival of Krishna. It had already been asserted that Krishna, who is the resting place of the goddess of fortune and the receiver of all pleasure and transcendental qualities, was going to visit Mathura city.
The Gopis then began to condemn the activities of Akrura. They stated that he was taking Krishna, who was more dear than the dearest to them, and who was the pleasure of their eyes. He was being taken from their sight without their being informed or solaced by Akrura. Akrura should not have been so merciless, but should have taken compassion on them. The Gopis went on to say, "The most astonishing feature is that Krishna, the son of Nanda, without consideration has already seated himself on the chariot. From this it appears that Krishna is not very intelligent. Yet he may be very intelligent, but he is not very merciful. Not only Krishna, but all the cowherd men are so callous that they are already yoking the bulls and calves for the journey to Mathura. The elderly persons in Vrindavan are also merciless. They do not take our plight into consideration and stop Krishna's journey to Mathura. Even the demigods are very unkind to us. They are also not impeding his going to Mathura."
The Gopis prayed to the demigods to create some natural disturbance, such as a hurricane, storm, or heavy rainfall, so that Krishna could not go to Mathura. They then began to consider, despite our parents and guardians, we shall personally stop Krishna from going to Mathura. We have no alternative but to take this direct action. Everyone has gone against us to take away Krishna from our sight. Without him, we cannot live for a moment. The Gopis then decided to obstruct the passage through which the chariot of Krishna was supposed to pass. They began to talk among themselves. We have passed a very long night, which seemed only a moment, engaged in the rasa dance with Krishna. We looked at his sweet smile and embraced him and talked with him. Now how shall we live even for a moment if he goes away from us? At the end of the day, in the evening, along with his elder brother Balarama, Krishna would return home with his friends. His face would be smeared with the dust raised by the hooves of the cows, and he would smile and play on his flute and look upon us so kindly. How shall we be able to forget him? How shall we be able to forget Krishna, who is our life and soul? He has already taken away our hearts in so many ways throughout our days and nights, and if he goes away, there is no possibility of our continuing to live. Thinking like this, the Gopis became more and more grief-stricken at Krishna's leaving Vrindavan. They could not check their minds, and they began to cry loudly, calling the different names of Krishna. "Oh dear Damodara, dear Madhava."
The Gopis cried all night before the departure of Krishna. As soon as the sun rose, Akrura finished his morning bath, got on the chariot and started for Mathura with Krishna and Balarama. Nanda Maharaja and the cowherd men got up on bullock carts. After loading them with big earthen pots filled with yogurt, milk, ghee and other milk products, and then they began to follow the chariot of Krishna and Balarama. In spite of Krishna's asking the Gopis not to obstruct their way, they all surrounded the chariot and stood up to see Krishna with pitiable eyes. Krishna was very much affected upon seeing the plight of the Gopis, but his duty was to start for Mathura, for this was foretold by Narada. Krishna therefore consoled the Gopis. He told them that they should not be aggrieved. He was coming back very soon after finishing his business, but they could not be persuaded to disperse. The chariot, however, began to head west, and as it proceeded, the minds of the Gopis followed it as far as possible. They watched the flag on the chariot as long as it was visible. Finally, they could see only the dust of the chariot in the distance. The Gopis did not move from their places, but stood until the chariot could not be seen at all. They remained standing still, as if they were painted pictures. All the Gopis decided that Krishna was not returning immediately, and with greatly disappointed hearts, they returned to their respective homes. Being greatly disturbed by the absence of Krishna, they simply thought all day and night about his pastimes and thus derived some consolation.
The Lord, accompanied by Akrura and Balaram, travelled in the chariot with great speed toward the bank of the Yamuna. Simply by taking a bath in the Yamuna, anyone can diminish the reactions of their sinful activities. Krishna and Balaram took their baths in the river and washed their faces. After drinking the transparent, crystal clear water of the Yamuna, they took their seats again on the chariot. The chariot was standing underneath the shade of a big tree, and the two boys sat down there. Akrura then took their permission to also take a bath in the Yamuna. According to Vedic ritual, after taking a bath in the river, one should stand at least half immersed and murmur the Gayatri mantra. While he was standing in the river, Akrura suddenly saw Balaram and Krishna within the water. He was surprised to see them there because he was confident that they were sitting on the chariot. Confused, he immediately came out of the water and went to see where the boys were, and he was very much surprised to see that they were sitting on the chariot as before. When he saw them on the chariot, he began to wonder whether he had mistakenly seen them in the water. He therefore went back to the river. This time he saw not only Balaram and Krishna there, but many of the demigods and all the siddhas, charanas and gandharvas. They were all bowing down before the Lord. He also saw Lord Sheshanaga with thousands of hoods. Lord Sheshanaga was covered with bluish garments, and his necks were all white. The white necks of Sheshanaga appeared exactly like snow-capped mountains. On the coiled lap of Sheshanaga, Krishna was sitting very soberly with 4 hands. His eyes were like the reddish petals of lotus flower.
In other words, after returning to the Yamuna, Akrura saw Balram turned into Sheshnag and Krishna turned into Mahavishnu. He saw the 4-handed Supreme Personality of Godhead smiling very beautifully. The Lord was very pleasing to all and was looking towards everyone with a merciful glance. He appeared beautiful with his raised nose, broad forehead, attractive ears, and reddish lips. His arms, reaching to the knees, were very strongly built. His shoulders were high, his chest was very broad, and his neck was shaped like a conch shell. His navel was very deep, and his abdomen was marked with 3 lines. His hips were broad and big, resembling those of a woman, and his thigh resembled the trunk of elephants. The other parts of his legs, the joints and lower extremities, were all very beautiful. The nails of his feet were dazzling, and his toes were as beautiful as the petals of the lotus flower. His helmet was decorated with very valuable jewels. There was a nice belt around his waist, and he wore a sacred thread across his broad chest. Bangles were on his hands, and armlets on the upper portion of his arms. He wore belts on his ankles. He possessed dazzling beauty, and his palms were like lotus flowers. He was further beautified by the different emblems of Vishnu Murti, the conch shell, club, disc, and lotus flower, which he held in his four hands. His chest was marked with the particular signs of Vishnu, and he wore fresh flower garlands. All in all, he was very beautiful to look at. Akrura also saw his lordship surrounded by intimate associates like the four Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sananda, and Sanat Kumara, and other associates like Sunanda and Ananda, as well as demigods like Brahma and Lord Shiva. The 9 great learned sages were there, and also devotees like Prahlad and Narada and the 8 Vasus. All were engaged in offering prayers to the Lord with clean hearts and pure words. After seeing the transcendental personality of Godhead, Akrura immediately became overwhelmed with joy and great devotion, and all over his body there was transcendental shivering. Although for the moment he was bewildered, he retained his clear consciousness and bowed down his head before the Lord. With folded hands and fluttering voice, he began to offer prayers to the Lord. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of the 39th chapter of Krishna, Akrura's returned journey and his vision of Vishnu Loka within the Yamuna river.
Chapter 40. Prayers by Akrura. Akrura offered his prayers as follows. My dear Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are the supreme cause of all causes and the original inexhaustible personality Narayan. From your navel a lotus flower grows, and from that lotus Brahma, the creator of this universe, is born. Since Brahma is the cause of this universe, you are the cause of all causes. The elements of this cosmic manifestation, earth, water, fire, air, ether, ego, and the total material energy, as well as nature, the marginal energy, the living entities, the mind, the senses, the sense objects, and the demigods who control the affairs of the cosmos are all produced from your body. You are the super soul of everything, but no one knows your transcendental form. Everyone within this material world is influenced by the modes of material nature. Even demigods like Lord Brahma, being covered by the influence of material nature, do not exactly know your transcendental existence beyond the cosmic manifestation of the 3 modes of material nature. Great sages and mystics worship you as the supreme personality of Godhead, the original cause of all living entities, all cosmic manifestation, and all demigods. They worship you as all-inclusive. Some of the learned Brahmanas also worship you by observing Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. They offer different kinds of sacrifices in the names of different gods. And there are others also who are fond of worshipping transcendental knowledge. They are very peaceful, and after giving up all kinds of material activities, they engage in the sacrifice known as Jnana Yagya, the philosophical search for you.
There are also devotees known as Bhagavatas who worship you as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After being properly initiated in the method of Pancharatra, they decorate their bodies with tilaka and engage in worshipping your different forms of Vishnu Murti. There are also known as Shaivites, followers of different acharyas who worship you in the form of Lord Shiva. It is stated in the Bhagavad-Gita that worship of demigods is also indirectly worship of the Supreme Lord. But such worship is not orthodox because the worshipable Lord is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana. Demigods such as Brahma and Shiva are incarnations of the material activities which are also emanations from the body of Narayana. Actually, there was no one existing before the creation except Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The worship of a demigod is not on the same level as worship of Narayana.
Akrura said, although the mind of those who are devotees of the demigods are fixed on particular demigod, because you are the super soul of all living entity, including the demigod, worship of the demigod indirectly goes to you. Sometime after falling down from the mountain during the rainy season, small rivers fail to reach the sea. Some reach the sea and some do not. Similarly, the worshipper of the demigod may or may not reach you. There is no guarantee. Their success depends on the strength of their worship. According to the Vedic principle, when a worshipper worships a particular demigod, he also conducts some rituals for the Narayana Yajnashar. For as it is mentioned in Bhagavad-Gita, the demigod cannot fulfill the desire of their worshipper without sanction of Narayana or Krishna. The excellent word used in Bhagavad-Gita are May Vidhitan, which means that the demigod can award some benediction after being authorized by the Supreme Lord. When demigod worship comes to his senses, he can reason as follows. The demigods can offer benediction only after being empowered by the Supreme Lord. So why not worship the Supreme Lord directly? Such worshipper of the demigod may come to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but others who take demigod as all in all cannot reach the ultimate goal.
Akrura continued to pray, "My dear Lord, the whole world is filled with the three material modes of nature, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. Everyone within this material world is covered by these modes, from Lord Brahma down to the non-moving plants and trees. My dear Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, because you are beyond the influence of the three modes. Except for you, everyone is being carried away by the waves of these modes. My dear Lord, fire is your mouth, the earth is your feet, the sun is your eye, the sky is your navel, and the directions are your ears. Space is your head, the demigods are your arms, the ocean and seas are your abdomen, and the winds and air are your strength and vitality. All the plants and herbs are the hairs on your body. The clouds are the hair on your head. The mountains are your bones and nails. The days and nights are the blinking of your eyelids. Prajapati, the progenitor, is your genitals, and the rains are your semen."
My dear Lord, all living entities, including different grades of demigods and different grades of overlords, kings, and other living entities, are resting in you as parts and parcel of the big unit. One cannot know you by experimental knowledge. One can simply understand your transcendental existence to be like the great ocean, in which different grades of living entities are included, or like the udambara fruit, out of which small mosquitoes come. My dear Lord, whatever eternal forms and incarnations you accept when you appear in this world are meant for relieving the living entities of their ignorance, illusion, and lamentation. All people, therefore, can appreciate the incarnations and pastimes of your Lordship and eternally glorify your activities. No one can estimate how many forms and incarnations you have, nor can anyone estimate the number of the universes that are existing within you.
Let me therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the fish incarnation, who appeared in the ocean of devastation, although your Lordship is the cause of all causes. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Hayagriva incarnation, who killed the two demons Madhu and Kaidaba. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appeared as the gigantic tortoise that held up the great mountain Mandara, and who appeared as the boar that rescued the earth planet, which had fallen into the water of the Karbodha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto your Lordship, who appeared as Narasimhadeva to deliver all kinds of devotees from the fearful condition of atheistic atrocities. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appeared as Vamanadeva and covered the three worlds simply by extending your lotus feet. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appeared as the Lord of the Brihus in order to kill all the infidel administrators of the world. And let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appeared as Lord Rama to kill demons like Ravana. You are worshipped by all devotees as the chief of the Raghu dynasty. Lord Ramachandra, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appear as Lord Vasudeva, Lord Sankarshna, Lord Pratyumna, and Lord Aniruddha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appear as Lord Buddha to bewilder the atheistic and demoniac. And let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who appear as Kalki to chastise the so-called royal order degraded to the abominable condition of the Milechas, who are below the jurisdiction of Vedic regulative principles.
My dear Lord, everyone within this material world is conditioned by your illusory energy. Under the impression of false identification and false possession, everyone is transmigrating from one body to another on the path of furtive activities and their reactions. My dear Lord, I am no exception among these conditioned souls. I am falsely thinking myself happy in possessing my home, wife, children, estate, property, and friends. In this way I am acting as if in a dreamland, because none of these are permanent. I am a fool to be always absorbed in thoughts of such things, accepting them as permanent truths. My dear Lord, due to my false identification, I have accepted as permanent everything which is non-permanent, such as this material body, which is not spiritual and is the source of all kinds of miserable conditions. Being bewildered by such concepts of life, I am always absorbed in thoughts of duality, and I have forgotten you, who are the reservoir of all transcendental pleasure. I am bereft of your transcendental association, being just like a foolish creature who leaves a waterhole covered by water-nourished vegetation and goes in search of water in the desert. The conditioned souls want to quench their thirst, but they do not know where to find water. They give up the spot where there is actually a reservoir of water and run into the desert where there is no water. My dear Lord, I am completely incapable of controlling my mind, which is now driven by the unbridled senses and is attracted by fruitive activities and their results. Therefore, my intelligence is very miserly. My dear Lord, your lotus feet cannot be appreciated by any person in the conditioned stage of material existence. But somehow or other I have come near your lotus feet, and I consider this to be your causeless mercy upon me. You can act in any way because you are the supreme controller. I can thus understand that when a person becomes eligible to be delivered from the path of repeated birth and death, it is only by your causeless mercy that he comes nearer to your lotus feet and becomes attached to your devotional service.
Akrura fell down before the Lord and said, My dear Lord, your transcendental eternal form is full of knowledge. Simply by concentrating one's mind upon your form, one can understand in full knowledge everything that be, because you are the original source of all knowledge. You are the supreme powerful, possessing all kinds of energies. You are the supreme Brahman and the supreme person, supreme controller and master of material energies. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, because you are Vasudev, the resting place of all creation. You are all-pervading Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you are also the Supreme Soul residing in everyone's heart and giving direction to act. Now, my Lord, I am completely surrendered unto you, please give me your protection. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 40th chapter of Krishna, Prayers by Akrura.
Chapter 41. Krishna enters Mathura. While Akrura was offering his prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord disappeared from the water, exactly as an expert dramatic actor changes his dress and assumes his original feature. After the Vishnu Murti disappeared, Akrura got out of the water. Finishing the rest of his ritualistic performance, he went near the chariot of Balaram and Krishna and was struck with wonder. Krishna asked whether he had seen something wonderful within the water or in space. Akrura said, My dear Lord, all wonderful things that are happening within this world, either in the sky or in the water or on the land, are factually appearing in your universal form. So when I have seen you, what wonderful things have I not seen? This statement confirms the Vedic version that one who knows Krishna knows everything, and that one who has seen Krishna has seen everything, regardless of how wonderful a thing may be. My dear Lord, Akrura continued, there cannot be anything more wonderful than your transcendental form. When I have seen your transcendental form, what is there left to see?
After saying this, Akrura immediately started driving the chariot, and by the end of the day, they reached the precincts of Mathura. As they rode from Vrindavan to Mathura, all the passersby along the way who saw Krishna and Balaram could not help but look at them again and again. In the meantime, the other inhabitants of Vrindavan, headed by Nanda and Upananda, had already reached Mathura by going through the forest, and they were awaiting the arrival of Krishna and Balaram in a garden. Upon reaching the entrance to Mathura, Krishna and Balaram got down from the chariot and shook hands with Akrura. Krishna informed him, You may go home now, because we shall enter Mathura later, along with our other associates. Akrura replied, My dear Lord, I cannot go to Mathura alone, leaving you aside. I am your surrendered servant. Please do not try to avoid me. Please come along with me, with your elder brother and cowherd boyfriends, and sanctify my house. My dear Lord, if you come, my home will be sanctified by the dust of your lotus feet. The water emanating from the perspiration of your lotus feet, namely the Ganges, purifies everyone, including the forefathers, the fire god, and all other demigods. Bali Maharaj has become famous simply by washing your lotus feet, and he enjoyed all material opulences and later on was elevated to the highest position of liberation. The Ganges water not only sanctifies the three worlds but is carried on the head of Lord Shiva. The ancestors of Bhagiratha, sanctified by this water, achieved the heavenly planets. O Supreme Lord of Lords, O Master of the universe, one can achieve piety simply by hearing about your transcendental pastimes. O Supreme Narayana, who are praised with selected verses, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
On hearing this, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, replied, Akrura, I shall surely come to your home with my elder brother Balram, but only after killing all the demons who are envious of the Yadu dynasty. In this way I shall please all my relatives. Akrura became little disappointed by these words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he could not disregard the order. He therefore entered Mathura and informed Kamsa about the arrival of Krishna, and then he entered his own home. After Akrura departure, Lord Krishna, Balram and the cowherd boys entered Mathura to see the city. They observed that the gate of Mathura was made of first-class marble, very well constructed, and that the doors were made of pure gold. There were gorgeous orchards and gardens all around, and the whole city was enriched by the canals so that no enemy could enter very easily. They saw that all the crossroads were decorated with gold, and that there were copper and the brass storehouse for stocking grains, and there were many rich men's houses, all appearing simultaneously as if constructed by one engineer. The houses were decorated with costly jewels, and each and every house had a nice compound of the trees bearing the fruits and flowers. The corridors and the verandas of the houses were decorated with silk cloth and embroidered work in jewelries and pearls. In front of balcony, windows and pigeons and peacocks walking and cooling, all the grains dealers' shops within the city were decorated with different kinds of flowers and garlands, newly grown grass and pleasing flowers like narcissus and the roses. The entrance doors of the houses were decorated with water pots filled with water, a mixture of water, yogurt, sandalwood pumps, and the flowers were sprinkled all around the doors, which were also decorated with burning lamps of different sizes. Over all the doors were decoration of the fresh mango leaves and the silken festoon.
So here we have a beautiful painting done by our BBT artist. You can come close.
Yeah, sure.
This is Akrura taking Krishna and Balaram to Mathura. Beautiful painting done by our Bhakti-Vedanta Book Trust artists. Prabhupada very much appreciated their artwork. And here's Krishna and Balaram going into Mathura. See how beautiful they are. Prabhupada said these paintings were the windows into the spiritual world. Okay? When the news spread?
This one.
Yes.
When the news spread that Krishna, Balaram, and the cowherd boys were within Mathura city, all the inhabitants gathered and the ladies and girls immediately went up to the roofs of the houses to see them. They had been awaiting the arrival of Krishna and Balaram with great anxiety, and in their extreme eagerness to see Krishna and Balaram, the ladies did not dress themselves very properly. Some of them placed their clothes in the wrong place. Some anointed their eyes on one side only, and some wore ankle bells only on one leg, or wore only one earring. Thus, in great haste, not even decorated properly, they went to see Krishna from the roofs. Some of them had been taking their lunch, but as soon as they heard that Krishna and Balaram were in the city, they left their eating and ran to the roofs. Some of them were in the bathroom taking their baths, but without properly finishing their bath, they went to see Krishna and Balaram. Some were engaged in feeding their children breast milk, but they put their babies aside and went to see Krishna and Balaram. Passing by very slowly and smiling, Lord Krishna immediately stole their hearts. He, who is the husband of the goddess of fortune, passed through the street like an elephant. For a very long time, the women of Mathura had heard about Krishna and Balaram and their uncommon characteristics, and they were very much attracted and eager to see them. Now, when they actually saw Krishna and Balaram passing on the street and saw them sweetly smiling, the ladies' joy reached the point of ecstasy. When they actually saw them with their eyes, they took Krishna and Balaram within their hearts and began to embrace them to their fullest desire. Their bodily hairs stood up in ecstasy. They had heard of Krishna, but they had never seen him, and now their longing was relieved. After going up on the roofs of the palaces of Mathura, the ladies, their faces joyful, began to shower flowers upon Krishna and Balaram. When the brothers were passing through the streets, all the brahmanas in the neighborhood went out with sandal water and flowers and respectfully welcomed them to the city. All the residents of Mathura began to talk amongst themselves about the elevated and pious activities of the people of Vrindavan. The residents of Mathura were surprised at the pious activities the cowherdmen in Vrindavan must have performed in their previous lives to be able to see Krishna and Balaram daily as cowherd boys.
While Krishna and Balaram were passing in this way, they saw a washerman and dyer of clothing. Krishna was pleased to ask him for some nice clothing. He also promised that if the washerman would deliver the nicest dyed clothes to him, the washerman would become very happy and all good fortune would be his. Krishna was not a beggar, nor was he in need of clothing, but by his request indicated that everyone should be ready to offer Krishna whatever he wants. That is the meaning of Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, this washerman was a servant of Kamsa and therefore could not appreciate the demand of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, this is the effect of bad association. He could have immediately delivered the clothing to Supreme Personality of Godhead, who promised him all good fortune. But being a servant of Kamsa, the sinful demon could not accept the offer. Instead of being pleased, he was very angry and refused the Lord's request, saying, "How is it that you are asking for clothing which is meant for the king?" The washerman then began to instruct Krishna and Balaram, "My dear boys, in the future don't be so impudent as to ask for things which belong to the king. Otherwise, you will be punished by the government men. They will arrest you and punish you, and you will be in difficulty. I have practical experience of this fact. Anyone who unlawfully wants to use the king's property is very severely punished.
On hearing this, Lord Krishna, the son of Devaki, became very angry at the washerman and striking him with the upper portion of his hand. He separated the man's head from his body. The washerman fell down dead on the ground. In this way, Lord Krishna confirmed the statement of the Brahma Samhita that every limb of his body is capable of doing everything he likes. Without a sword, but simply with his hand, he cut off the head of the washerman. This is proof that the Supreme Lord is omnipotent. If he wants to do anything, he can do it without external help.
After this ghastly incident, employees of the washerman immediately dispersed, leaving the clothing. Krishna and Balaram took possession of it and dressed according to their choice. The rest of the clothes were offered to the cowherd boys, who also used them as they desired. What they did not use remained there. Krishna, Balaram and the boys then proceeded along the main road. In the meantime, a devotee tailor took the opportunity of service and prepared some nice clothes from the cloth for Krishna and Balaram. Thus, being very nicely attired, Krishna and Balaram looked like elephants dressed with colored clothing on the full moon day or the dark moon day. Krishna was very much pleased with the tailor and gave him the benediction of Sarupya Mukti, which means that after leaving his body, he would be liberated and would attain a four-handed body, exactly like that of Narayana in the Vaikuntha planets. Krishna also granted him that as long as he would live, he would earn sufficient opulence to be able to enjoy sense gratification. By this incident, Krishna proved that those who are Krishna-conscious devotees will not be lacking material enjoyment of sense gratification. They will have sufficient opportunity for such things, but after leaving this body, they will be allowed to enter the spiritual planets of Vaikuntha Loka and Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan.
After dressing nicely, Krishna and Balaram went to the florist of the same Sudama. As soon as they reached the precinct of his house, the florist immediately came out, and with great devotion fell down on his face to offer his respectful obeisances. He offered a nice seat to Krishna and Balaram and asked his assistant to bring out flowers, betel nuts and pulp of chandan. The florist welcomed greatly, satisfied the Lord.
The florist very humbly and submissively offered his prayers to the Lord, saying, "My dear Lord, because you have come to my place, I think all my forefathers and all my worshipable superiors are pleased and delivered. My dear Lord, you are the supreme cause of all causes of this cosmic manifestation, but for the benefit of the residents of this earthly planet, you have appeared with your plenary portion to give protection to your devotees and annihilate the demons. You are equally disposed as the friend of all living entities. You are the super soul, and you do not discriminate between friend and enemy. Yet you are pleased to give your devotees the special result of the devotional activities. My Lord, I am praying that you please tell me whatever you wish me to do, because I am your eternal servant. If you would order me to do something, it would be a great favor to me." The florist Sudama was greatly pleased within his heart by seeing Krishna and Balaram in his place, and thus, as his choicest desire, he made two exquisite garlands of various flowers and presented them to the Lord. Krishna and Balaram were very much pleased with his sincere service, and Krishna offered the florist his salute. salutation, and benedictions, which he is always prepared to bestow upon the surrendered souls. When the florist was offered benedictions, he begged from the Lord that he might remain his eternal servant in devotional service, and by such service do good to all living creatures. By this, it is clear that a devotee of the Lord in Krishna consciousness should not be satisfied simply by his own advancement in devotional service. He must be willing to work for the welfare of all others. This example was followed by the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. It is therefore stated in a prayer about them, Loka nam hitakarino Vaishnavas, or devotees of the Lord, are not selfish. Whatever benefits they derive from the Supreme Personality of Godhead as benedictions, they want to distribute to all other persons. That is the greatest of all humanitarian activities. Being satisfied with the florist, Lord Krishna not only gave him whatever benedictions he wanted, but over and above that, he offered him all material opulences, family prosperity, a long duration of life, and whatever else his heart desired within the material world. Thus ends the Bhakti-Vedanta purport of 41st chapter of Krishna. Krishna enters Mathura. Hari Bol.
So that will conclude our hour of reading to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for allowing us to come and read Krishna book to you. Next week we'll be on chapter 42, the breaking of the bow in the sacrificial arena. So let us offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paskaja Deshatarane. And to each other. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Krishna Book, Jai Srila Prabhupada, Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai.